That's a great idea.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining. Those of you who are in person, invite you to eat some food and continue eating as you like. For those of you who are online, sorry we can't get you the food, but thank you for joining us. I want to start just by thanking you all again for the time that you put into this process, being at meetings and all the work in between meetings. We really appreciate it. Tonight, we are going to I'll share the agenda. We're going to do a quick overview of where we are in the process and our expected timeline for the next steps. We'll have a brief review of the evaluation criteria that we talked about at our last meeting. And then we're going to begin to discuss the proposals and come to, if not a quite final, a near final decision. The decisions we make tonight will inform kind of what we write up in our draft report. And then you'll be able to see and comment on the draft report again before it's final. So
That's
we can,
pretty ambitious.
we're doing our best. We do not expect to get through all of the, let me dial it back. We're not going to get through all of them today. So we'll aim for as much as we can get, probably half tonight and then the other half on the 9th. So thank you. We're not as ambitious as I made it seem. So you can see our proposed decision-making process will be, we'll discuss the OSSI proposal, record any ideas for modifications and changes. We'll take a vote. And then as we find consensus, we will make a record of that, make sure that's conveyed in the report. But we're also going to ensure that we have space for dissenting voices to also be included in the report that we.
Okay, so it's a majority? You say take a vote, just
mhm.
majority?
And again, like this is, everyone will be able to see the draft report before it is finalized. So here you can see the timeline that we have. We added a meeting for April 9th for the task force. So that will be the continuation of the proposals that we don't get to today, which we assume there will be a few. And then a few of the other items here are not task force specific, but we want you to know about. So we are aiming to have preliminary recommendations that we can post publicly before the next SBOE public meeting, so that at the next SBOE public meeting on April 22nd, we can invite public comment on the preliminary recommendations. Then we'll have another task force meeting April 23rd to finalize, come closer to finalizing, and then one last iteration, one last chance to review and try to be finished on May 1st.
Can I ask you a little quick question? I mean, April 9th, is there any chance that could be from 4 to 6? Or I realize I can't make it from 5 to 7, that's a new one. Anyway, I'll just put that on the.
Okay, thank you. Haley, can you note that? And May 6th is a working session for the SBOE, and that's when Representative Thompson and I will share the report, the task force recommendations with the wider state board. And then it'll be in the board's hands to review those recommendations and then pass on recommendations to OSSI. We'll send those to OSSI, and then we expect OSSI's return proposal on June 3rd. Please.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So do you anticipate that the rest of the board members will support the recommendations of this task force?
mean, there's nothing binding. We hope that they will give it good weight in their decisions. But there's nothing formally binding the.
And is that a majority vote also?
Uh,
Like if a majority of the board accepts our recommendations, does it go to OSSI?
Sorry, I was trying to log on to that. I missed the last part.
Well, I'm
you're
just
talking,
wondering.
you're talking about the step.
No, I just didn't hear because I was trying to log on the, Jim was trying to get me on the Wi-Fi. What was the question?
No, my question is like, the other board members,
Mhm.
like, we will come up with our report, which we will either all agree with or not. We don't know what that's gonna say. But, and that's majority here with,
Right.
now with the board, is it also, if a majority of the board, if 5 people say they support these, does it go to OSSI?
Are you talking about the May 13th step of like,
Yes.
Yeah. So is it just 5 board members that you need in order to send it to OSSI?
Yes, I mean, that's, so, unless there's a very special thing we specify in our bylaws, we pretty much operate off a majority rule. I think the difference between the task force report, and the way the board votes is with the task force report, we will include, things that are not a majority. Like we will say, all right, the majority said this, but you know, maybe 52% said this and 48% said this. With the board, once something is voted on as a majority, that it becomes the board's recommendation to OSSI and it will go to OSSI. So hypothetically speaking, let's say there is, I don't know, a recommendation around requiring rocket science. That one board member wants to add to our recommendations. They would not be able to do that as one board member. But if they got 4 other board members to say, yes, we should require rocket science, that would now be part of what they would like OSSI to consider. Now, of course, what is given to OSSI, there will be then negotiation. And so OSSI has to come back to us and we do not have the ability to amend what OSSI comes back to us with.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna get straight. I get it. Thank you.
I just have a question about, we haven't gotten to this part. Is it the time frame between when the board sends the recommendations to OSSI and when OSSI returns a final proposal based on the recommendations is only 2 weeks or 3 weeks? Or 4 weeks. That seems so, doesn't seem like they would be able to do much responding to the recommendations. Is there a reason why it's
I would,
so quick?
so I would say a couple of things. One, this is our best guess, based on what OSSI has said so far as our working session dates and our public meeting dates. If for whatever reason, OSSI says they need more time, they would get more time. Like we can't enforce this timeline on them, but this is what they have proposed. We also do have OSSI, we've been in clearly conversation with OSSI, and OSSI's on the task force. So there's no reason to believe that it's like we're handing them something that's a surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. So we have shared, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have shared this timeline with them and
Yeah, they know.
were okay with it.
Yes.
With the understanding that if we can't get it done, we can't get it
We'll
done.
move it.
And so we'll be flexible.
Thank you.
All right, and so the criteria that we talked about at our last meeting, you can see here, these are the things that we broadly agreed are the considerations as we evaluate our proposals. So you can see them there, and of course, we're all.
Also have it here for reference throughout.
Oh, great, thanks.
Yeah.
That's what I think it was.
My teacher handwriting.
Thank
Any
you.
questions about that?
All right, just a few reminders we wanted to share to frame our conversation. We have discussed a lot of different things, and some of the things that we've talked about may not be within the scope of graduation requirements strictly. That doesn't mean that we won't still convey those issues and concerns in our recommendation report. But that's another thing that we need to consider. We know we have a lot of concerns about implementation for many of the recommendations. And so we want to request that you be as specific as you can about what might mitigate any implementation concerns so that we can convey that also. And finally, just to remember, our time is limited. We're going to try to make the most of it, especially while we have so many of you here in person. And we really appreciate that. But we'll try to move with some good pace without cutting people off, or we're going to try to give fair hearing to everything, but do have some limits. On that note, we do not expect to get through all the topics tonight, and so we will have to have a second meeting to get through the rest. And we may revisit a recommendation we discussed tonight if something we decide later affects that. So if there's a relationship between two topics. And just a note that we do not expect to get to practical studies diploma tonight, in part because we're expecting some proposals that we have not yet received. And OSSI is also working on some more information about federal regulations that are relevant to that discussion. All right, can I pass off so I can take a drink of water? Or-
Yes,
Okay.
and it's hot in here. So we figured we would start with the recommendations that had the closest to consensus. When we were discussing putting this together, I said we're gonna think of it like like literally like physical exercise. You warm up first. So we're warming up. The first recommendation is about to change the community service hours. OSSI has proposed the following. So current volunteer community service regulation, first change it to community engagement, and then also to reduce the number of hours. Reminder, expanding to community engagement will allow paid opportunities and should allow more choice. So we'll show you what you all said to us.
Oh, wait.
Oh, no. Oh, this
First,
is
we
new
have
slide.
context. Do you want me to share this one?
You're welcome to.
Okay.
When I looked at
so,
this at 3 o'clock, this slide was not there. I'm not
If
a
any-
person.
We're still.
This
Okay.
was a recent addition. If any of you are familiar with Dara Shaw from the DC Education Research Collaborative, she reached out to offer some sort of contextual research. So we added that in just today. So these are just some more background information that may help you as you're making a decision. So she, I'm sharing it in bullet points. She shared a longer document. But essentially, it boils down to studies from the 1990s and 2000s, link community service programs to pro-social behaviors, but there's limited evidence that the programs actually cause those behaviors, and links are typically found between most extracurricular activities and pro-social behaviors. Research suggests that community service has similar aspects, similar outcomes to other experiential learning opportunities. And there's little data on how much these requirements are a barrier to graduation, because Maryland and DC are the only states that have such a requirement. And now I will pass it back to Representative Thompson.
Oh, she passed it to the slide. I can't see. So I know the red means people agree. I cannot see the
Some of
number.
you, it is unfortunately in black and white.
No worries. I cannot see the number from here. This is why I was trying to get on the internet. So 94.4% of the survey takers said they would currently support the proposal of reducing from 100 to 60 hours.
And the survey takers here is us, that this is
That's
the
us.
straw poll.
This is, yes, we tried to see where the, the task force was.
So everybody has in front of them OSSI's proposal. If you want to see the specific language, it was on the previous slide, but there is more. So you have that. If you want to flip to the community service, and then you'll ask for the 3 topics we're expecting to cover tonight. a little packet. This one is just one page. This should be.
All right, can we go to the next slide? The word. Is she switching on me? This is,
Yes.
okay, all right, so next, community service will be redefined as community engagement. This is to allow paid opportunities in addition to the unpaid opportunities. 88.9% of task force members currently support that as a recommendation. I will say that it looks like we didn't have anyone who was supported with modifications. And so we do have a category of I would support if there are a caveat for each of the things. And 11% would not currently support this change. Next slide, please.
So that's the last slide for that, and now we move to discussion and short paper, or I will be your scribe if anyone has a suggestion for a specific change. I'll record those here.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead, we have a
Yeah.
question.
I have a question about, it came up, about including during the day community service, like, is that something that we could add where a lot of students were saying they do things during
During the school
the
day.
school day, whether it's their lunch break, they peer tutor, or they do community service during lunch, but they're not given credit hours because it says it has to be after school. And
We
for
could
kids
count
who
that
work-
as support with modification, so if that is a
Okay.
recommendation, we can put, so maybe it's helpful to do this. If there are things that you would like put on the table now, like let's say you support with the modification, let's say there's something we should be considering. Those are the things we want to hear now, but we just wanted to give you a sense of how far people were apart. Other thoughts about this in particular? I'm gonna go to Glenn and then to Laura.
I would, as we think about the potential modification of during the school day, would just ask that the recommendation, include an opportunity for OSCE to ensure that there's language that speaks to if the community service is a part of a high school graduation requirement, that students aren't able to double dip, because if it's for a grade and it counts for community service, then now it's hitting two buckets when it wasn't, potentially was not intended to do so. So
Okay.
for example.
Would you be amenable to language like non-instructional time?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And I give that example because if a student is in a music course and that particular orchestra is going to volunteer and play at an event during the school day, it's a grade for that student to go and perform, and it's community service, and just want to be sure that we're clear so that students and families know the differences between the two potentially.
Okay, and I'm gonna come to you, Laura. One thing for clarification, I am asking Glenn, would he be amenable to that? Because I want to reflect his thoughts appropriately. I am not saying that we all agree. So if there are, other thoughts, I welcome them as well. Yes.
So like, I taught a community service class
Yes,
once as like an elective. And it was to get kids their hours,
yes,
and it was during the school day.
yes. We would see that as different because
Okay.
we do have courses that are designed for community service, but it is not embedded within a
Another
course that
class,
has standards that are associated with meeting mastery, and then you're also community service.
But technically, that would be instructional time.
Yeah, I mean, it was fourth period.
Yeah.
Maybe you could say like not counting for academic credit or something like
Yeah.
that.
Okay, I saw some hands down here, and then I'm gonna come back up top. Stop.
Okay, so this is the one, the longer I sit with this, the more uncomfortable I am with this. So I'll raise my concerns and really question. I do believe in the value of community service. I won't get into why, but I think it can be very transformative for students, and we use it all the time. I think it's very valuable. And what I said in my comments was by stretching, I have no problem with reducing the hours to 60. But by including everything from jobs, internships, after-school activities, I think there's a little language about it should be in service to something that is going to be meaningless. In fact, like what job is not? You're serving. I mean, like when you're working at McDonald's, you're giving food to people. So I do not understand why do we need to have a requirement for community engagement? If the graduation requirements are all about embedding internships and after-school activities, it just seems redundant and unnecessary. I would really like to keep community service as real service. Even if it's paid, I don't mind it being paid or overlapping with other things, but once you get into jobs and internships, I would think anyone in SYP just automatically qualifies, satisfies those requirements. So I don't remember, I should have been around long enough to know why community service requirements were put in place. What has changed now? To me, at this point in time, we need community service. We need to focus on community. So I think it's a big loss to get away from the service part of it and broaden it so much that it just is a grab bag for anything.
And do you feel comfortable capturing that, or do you want me to restate with the headlines for Sally?
So I hear what you're saying. We're gonna come to a decision on both parts, and it sounds like you're not proposing a modification, you're just saying that you would not support this proposal, or are you suggesting a modification?
So what I heard Sally say was she's okay with the reduction of hours to 60.
Okay,
What I also heard Sally say was that right now, the way it's framed, especially with the inclusion of jobs in particular, it can become meaningless.
okay.
So
you're
I would count that as a
proposing
modification in the
this
language.
part?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
trying
She
to
wants
really
tighter
understand.
language.
Maybe there's something there that I'm not seeing, but to me, just seems like a very generic bucket that should be unnecessary if everything else is in place.
Okay, I saw you and then,
Well, I was looking,
no, you can see that, yes.
I was looking at the public survey data and I was wondering only 29% said yes to the reduction. And I was wondering if the language should be at least 60 hours, because if you're putting in paid, that might require expectations beyond the regular just service hours. So at least 60 might make sense when people are not too sure about cutting it down from 100 to 60.
So you're saying
So
change
at
it
least
from
60
60 hours to
At least 60 hours,
Okay,
because that would, again, include the paid expectations of, activities that won't be on par with the unpaid ones, perhaps.
And then we had another comment.
Yeah.
Right, my comment is around kind of people with boots on ground, which I've been that person to determine, are these hours or is it something else? The clear line was always, did you get paid for it? Was it at a .org versus a .com? Because when you make this water very gray, to both Sita and Sally's point, we may as well just make it an elective opportunity for students to build their resumes, because it's going to become very difficult for the people who have to make the determination, is this service or not? And I think it is an unfair place to put practitioners to determine if I work at Subway, that I'm learning skills. It's just like an internship. I count money, I greet the public. If that's the case, then, keep it just the endorsement for service. Because if you make it so gray and murky, it's gonna be really difficult. It's gonna become a non-issue. It's gonna be like a checkbox. Did you do something for 60 hours? Yeah, I did some stuff. And then they just make up what the things were. Versus I serve dinners at my church every Saturday, and here's my 500 hours, which I had students turn in. And yes, my mom made me do it, but it was a true service. And so I don't know that it's a modification or it's really just a comment. The position that you're gonna put in classroom or counselors in, if they have to determine, is this service or not? And they're gonna yield to just including any and everything because they don't want to argue with students.
Okay, thank you. I'm back down here. I want to note we do have people online, so I'm gonna ask for people online. I'm also gonna ask that, for this first round, if I'm looking for things that are missing from this list. I'm not looking for like, where you, like, if you haven't heard it yet, that way we can go through and we can discuss all the things and we have a sense of how much we have for each topic. We did a little bit of math, before these meetings. And we said if we take about 15 minutes for each topic, we can get through all of them. Now, that is with the understanding that some of them might be 5 minutes and some of them might be 45 minutes. And so I just want to be as transparent as possible about why I'm asking what I'm asking, not to discourage discussion, just so we can all moderate ourselves in the discussion and have a sense of the bite size. So I know there were hands down here as far where there are new things that aren't on this list yet that we think we need to discuss about this particular recommendation. Yes.
The only thing I would say is to be careful with the language between paid and jobs, because some community service opportunities provide stipends for.
I'm gonna count that for right now under tighter language.
Okay,
Okay, do we have anything online?
Didn't see anything yet.
Okay, no, all right. So, these are the three things we're gonna grapple with community service. If got a new category?
Yes, the only thing I would add is, as this is unpacked, ensuring that it is inclusive or exclusive to in high school or beyond, because high school graduation requirements can include credits that are earned in middle school, whereas in some LEAs, community service hours are not able to be obtained prior to high school, or the summer prior to your high school year. And so I think just clarity around that would be helpful.
Okay,
The current standard is after first day of high school.
Correct.
So the summer going into high school doesn't count unless you're in like a high school summer program.
Correct.
Then they count.
okay. Anything else that is new to this list? All right, so let's get into the things on the list. All right, so I'm gonna do a quick poll first, just so I know where folks are. So including during the school day, how are people feeling about this? Do we think community service should be included during the school day? Give me a thumbs up. Great. 1, 2, wait, what?
If it's non-instructional, if those things are there.
Non-instructional.
I know, I just wanna know for the discussion.
Yeah.
purposes. Okay. Should we consider including it during the school day? I'm gonna allow for caveats in the language of all things. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
And 2 thumbs up in the chat.
Thumbs up in the chat, that's 14. 15. Okay, so 15, I don't feel strong about this. All right, so it sounds like that is something we want to put on the table in the policy. Now, let's talk about how we would want that to look. All right, so non-instructional time versus time. I heard more people that they able to do it during technical. Thank you, probably not,
Okay.
but that she taught a class to help students satisfy during the school day, which technically would be instructional time. I heard Glenn noting that we might not want to double dip, and then are you bringing something else in there?
yeah, I
Yes.
just wanted to add from being in the school day, I also know students are stretched and pulled, like we had the mayor come a few weeks ago and students missed many classes, AP classes, because they had to rehearse or give speeches, and then because they're being told to, voluntold. And then they have to do all that makeup work and homework, so I just wanna be careful with during the school day, because they still have to make up all of that work that they're missing when they're being asked to do things during the school day. So just kind of being empathetic to students, like when they're serving the school or the community during the day, they still have these responsibilities that other classmates got to do during school. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Like whatever they're practicing or being asked to do.
Okay. I hear what you're saying. I think if you're looking at my face and going, why is she not like saying yes, yes?
Okay.
It's because I am trying to picture that and also just considering at what level are we talking, right? So we're talking like policy level things, and then like always trying to come up with language that would fit to describe that. Cause I don't know, but I hear the consideration and Haley is taking notes. So how do we feel about let's start with the instructional versus non-instructional? Is there a better way to frame this? Because what I heard Glenn put on the table was about like the double, we're gonna call it double dipping. Now, I would say in college, I was a double crown queen. That was the best thing going for me. But is that, how do we want to wrestle with that? So I'm gonna open that up for discussion now.
Didn't they clarify?
I'm gonna do it like this. I'm gonna go here, that's you, Dan. So let's start here, Dan, Sally, Kathy, did you?
It might get worked out. I just thought it was
So
clarified.
let's start here.
My pushback on the double dipping is much to, I can't see your name, it starts with an L. If I could see, I'd be doing so well. What she's speaking of, in schools, we often pull all the same kids all the time. In their missing instruction, they're having to take it up. And even with the case of orchestra or choir, those students still have to volunteer. So there's rarely a time that a teacher takes the whole class. But in the event when the teacher does take the whole class, the service is a part of instruction. And that sometimes it might open a door that a student might on their own choose to open. And so at my school, just on Friday, our entire LEA preschool 3 to 8 all did community service during the school day. It is a part of our Aspire metrics because that's important to us. But there were students who were exposed to community service as a part of their school day who maybe wouldn't have been exposed, and at 4 and 5 can articulate why they were doing it. And so I think the element of service, if we're gonna have these other opportunities, some students may only do it during the school day. Because it may become, as a person who had to count it, if you make it too murky, whoever's doing the counting is just gonna accept whatever the students turn in because they don't wanna argue with them. And so I think there's some value to in the school day.
Coming to you, Dan.
I think my question is around a little bit of kind of a Laura's, it's around having a class or course offer and kind of differentiating that between instructional time and credit earning activity. I think that's really the crux of it. Like, is this a credit earning activity or like a part of the instructional day, or is it just happening during, 8 to 3? If it happened during 8 to 3, we pull kids, plenty of stuff. We've done focus groups during the day. We do a lot of things with students during the day. That's during instructional time. And maybe in someone's class, but they're not going to get graded. It's not being graded. It's not counted towards anything. It's just part of what we're doing for that day. So I think if the activity is not credit earning, what's the matter when it happens?
Okay, so you're suggesting that instead of, you are saying during the day, but instead of non-instructional time versus instructional time, maybe the right frame is credit, or if it is a credit earning activity. Is that correct?
Correct. But I think that's my question to Laura Clay. If they're doing this community service course, are they earning, they're getting a grade for it? Or are they?
Depends on the school. I mean, we have some courses that are credit bearing for community service, and then some of our LEAs have schools that have community service as a part of their graduation requirements in addition to what the district says, and it is non-graded.
What would we like to see is the question.
So I do think what you named is a wordsmithing that it's exciting, that it is during the school day, like a non-graded community engagement experience. Because then that allows for the pooling of students and all of the experiences that students are taking advantage of during the school day that doesn't come with a grade. I think that's what I heard you say.
I'm gonna come to Sally next. I will note, this is just for my note taking purposes. If you cannot read, I apologize. But do not apologize because I was not a teacher, so I don't write on chalkboards.
No, I just to follow up with you, when you say non-graded, is that non-credit or non?
So I intentionally use graded because there are some.
It might be within a course,
Yes,
But it's not.
but
So
it's,
this was my
but
question.
the activity is not for a grade.
that's correct.
So you might get credit for the fuller course.
Yes.
So like, let's say, everyone came to Ebony Rose's history class. And we had a specific service opportunity at the DC History Center where we helped out with an exhibit. The course, you get a grade for. That specific activity, I am not going to grade. I will only give you hours for it. Is that correct?
So my question, my original question is just following up with Laura. The course that you offered, was that for credit or was that not for credit? The community service course?
Don't remember. It was pretty rare that we had the ability to offer something like kind of that extra in the schedule. My guess is like, I think it was like pass fail. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it was a pass fail, so it wasn't credit, because yeah, the goal was to help students who had 0 hours in the 11th grade just get it done.
I also taught a course and it was pass fail, the same exact reason, some students just.
I'm gonna come to Kathy. I'm also gonna make us move on, because I said this is the warm up. So this is giving you a sense,
That's,
this is giving you a sense of things that we are pretty close on. But it's still a certain amount of discussion. Come on, Kathy.
I don't have the language for tighter language, but I sort of, for me, it's all about, is it in service? I don't care that much about the double dipping. I don't care. I think some definition of what service, because to your point,
Okay, so I'm ready. to
so
move
I
to
want
this.
tighter language and we can propose it for next time.
All right, so let's get into this part as much as we can, while respecting the time frame. So how many people feel strongly about the removing jobs we need to deal with the title language? Give me a thumbs up.
We need to leave with, we do need to deal with the tighter language. They're two different things.
So page 17 has the current language.
I'm gonna go more broad on this one, just so we can not separate it. How many people feel like we need tighter language on what constitutes a service opportunity? Give me a thumbs up. 1, 2, Bridget, what we doing?
I'm wondering if you mean service and engagement or just service, because that's the proposed language says service and engagement.
Service and engagement.
And engagement.
1, 2, 3. No feelings, no feelings, no feelings.
Just reading, so we're this.
I'll give folks a chance to read.
Yeah, this one, so they do kind of define it. Something. We cater unpaid activities outside of school consisting of civic duty, addressing the needs or challenges faced by others, so it does actually speak to service.
Yes, but the question is, do you want tighter language than that?
Then that.
Than that.
It's
Do you-
pretty service focused, so I'm kind of.
Okay, I got 1 online, 2
Yeah, another one.
online. I believe I'm at 5. Anybody else? All right, so no, you do not feel strongly about this. Here is what I will offer. If you all want to offline, come up with some language and submit it, you're happy to consider it, but I'm not gonna spend the time in the hope of doing that. Okay? All right, the reduction of hours, so, specify, okay, I'm gonna try to get to both of these. So one was put on the table that we should encourage more than 60 hours, not require, but encourage more than 60 hours. How many people feel strongly about that? Anybody? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Okay. Thumbs down, okay.
I'll do it anyway, I think.
I was looking at the.
Well,
There is like a little.
I would like to
plaque
put on the
right
table for us to
in the
consider when we get to
something.
endorsements, a community service endorsement for students who do more.
They do
Um,
get something. They do get something if they like.
They get honor cords.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I mean, part of the, requirement. Yes, okay, yes, I know they get this. All right, so, we're not gonna address this here. Specify high school versus middle, so can you start earlier and accumulate hours? How many people feel strongly about this? Anybody, yes, want us to discuss this now? All right, we're gonna move on. Perfect. Note, Haley was taking notes.
Nothing.
All right, no majority there. All right, next one. Hey, you wanna? Or you want me to keep going?
Are we gonna vote on these things or? Or we-
Well, we voted along the way.
Oh, do we see what our criteria is? We don't do that now, we do that later? Do we kind of say? What are the skills, what are the implementations, what are the equity, do we do that?
Oh, I guess we can do that now. I was gonna wait till the end. I figured we were gonna do it
Yeah.
at the end with all of them.
That's fine, I'm not, I'm just,
Yeah, I don't think we were gonna go. We were just encouraging that to be.
To
our
be the frame.
Frame.
Mhm.
well, if somebody sees like, well, you didn't do that, you wanna know.
Yeah, so okay, so maybe I should say it like this. I am hoping that the reason we showed you that frame is because I'm hoping that you all are thinking about that along the way. And when we put everything together, right, like that is the frame we will use. Those are the things you should be putting on the table. We do not have necessarily a scoring metric for that. I'm sure I could come up with one if people really want it, but I cannot do it on the spot. Kathy, what's your thought?
I was just thinking that the concern with community service is implementation. That's what a lot of the concerns are. That's
Oh,
what we're
yeah.
trying to resolve.
And we will capture those. And we have been capturing those along the way.
Yeah.
All right. I am gonna move us to the next one. So here's why I'm moving us to the next one, because overall, the task force already said 90% of us agree, right? But we don't need to vote again. And we will add these modifications for folks to consider. It's already over 50% threshold, so I'm not gonna waste your time with my counting. Okay, next one. All right, diploma endorsement. OSSE has proposed creating 4 endorsement options. Students can qualify courses from their program of studies meet the requirements. Endorsements on the table, CTE, advanced coursework, individualized endorsement, and or seal of 5 literacy. Selection of and participation in endorsements is optional. Next slide, please. Okay, here's some more context that was not in here earlier, but I will tell you about it. All right, so experts recommend that endorsements are aligned with entry requirements and readiness indicators for post-secondary education and career. And then data indicates equity considerations when offering endorsement is optional. Data from Texas shows STEM endorsement, optional for districts to offer, are more available in metropolitan districts and more likely to be earned by white, Asian, and non-low income students. So not low income students. Things for you to consider, if you would like. Next. All right, so where does the task force survey takers fall on this currently? So of the 4 endorsement options to be created or possibly created, 61% of the task force currently support this. 38.9% of the task force support this as modifications. And modifications that came up and common suggestions survey was to make it optional for LEAs to offer, to add more endorsement options, and to ensure equitable access to the field of advisors. Okay, let's go back. All right, so let's start here. Are there other? Ellie is gonna chart the things because we know that's not my expertise. All right, so are there other things outside of these 3 bullets that we already had captured in modifications, things for us to consider, discuss, that we would like up here? I'm looking for folks in the room, and then I'm gonna check the online chat, which will give them some time to type. Okay.
In terms of equity, if we make it optional for LEAs to offer, like what is our responsibility to the students? Like, I see the LEA may want to not deal with it, but what about the requirement? Like we're saying LEA, every LEA has to do algebra and algebra 2 and the integrated math or whatever. This is a larger question that'll come up more often. Why can't students have the option for an endorsement, even if the school doesn't offer it?
So I'm gonna count that as we will discuss that with the make optional, because it is a really important question. It also came up at our public meeting last night.
But they are optional.
Right, but this is optional for an LEA to offer. So it is one thing to say.
Yeah, I'm
is
saying, I'm
is it-
saying that LEAs have to offer.
Yes, so it is one thing to say it is optional if a student wants to pursue an endorsement option. It is another thing to say, I, as Ebony Rose School of Fashion, I don't know, refuse to give, I'm opting to, none of my students can do a CTE endorsement because what do we need CTE in fashion? I don't think that's true, but that is the difference between what is up here. We will discuss that, yes.
My question is more about the timeline, so if it's required for LEAs to offer, that's a big lift to do well. So if
If
it's,
it's a question about the timeline, I'm gonna ask you to hold that until I have my final list so we can discuss it.
well, it's more just about maybe adjusting the like when it's required by. So there's like an on-ramp to making it required.
Okay, thank you. Anything new that's not on this list? Chat people. Yes.
Like, it's not like what to change, it's the implementation question, and I think others is.
All right, so it sounds like there's
It's like, well, no, it's like, what does it take?
to do it.
3 classes? Like someone asked what grade you have to earn in the classes? I know W2,
This is,
I'm-
it should be in here.
Yeah, it's reflected in the document.
Yes. All right, so as of right now,
so the W2 did suggest that that whole capstone thing.
we're gonna get
Should
to
be,
that.
no, I'm saying to be considered for the endorsement only,
Yes, we're gonna get to that.
but it's not part of the endorsement.
No, well, the reason I'm saying we're gonna get to that is because there's an add more endorsement options policy. So what I'm hearing is, let's get to discussion. That's all. All right, so yes, cause you can
Then
put
it's the
that.
modification. The modification would be to earn the endorsement, you do a capstone.
Yes, so, okay. Trust the process a little bit here with me, Laura. Just go with it, because I'm like, just give me a little bit of grace, because we're trying. All right, so now, let's discuss what it would look like to make this optional for LEAs. If that's something people want to do, what would be the consequences of that? How it could be done, how it could not be done, right? So, folks, tell me your thoughts on this particular topic. Yes.
I'm guarded in my language, because I wanna make sure I fit within the parameters of the question. I wanna talk about sealed by literacy, because I think this is, sealed by literacy can be awarded based on exam. Which means you can take the exam at whatever LEA or whatever, whatever school you go to.
Right.
You can come, I'm hoping ASIF would administer exams, but someone will administer exams.
You could be a
So
homeschool
you
student
could
and get a seal by literacy.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think that's a little different from the other endorsements, which depend on specific kind of coursework.
Mhm.
So that to me needs to be not optional, because students can earn it. That's the only way to ensure equitable access.
I
By
will
the
say, people who brought up equitable access, I believe we're also talking about for students who aren't native speakers, some schools don't offer higher level language. And so they were saying to have equitable access, all the schools need to be offering higher level language.
It's different.
No, that was me.
That's a different thing.
Okay.
That was me.
And some of this is implementation. So, I'm happy to start and put my feelings on it. I do think, I am really wrestling with this idea that LEA can make it optional to offer. So if I choose, like I went to the C school. I made the choice to go to C, or I didn't make it, my mom made it. We can tell you about why. That's a long, very funny story. But, so she made the choice to enroll me in C when I was in 7th grade. And let's say that, I don't know, I wanted to do one of the endorsement options. What the argument is, if the school can't offer that, I should just go somewhere else, which is actually super disruptive to a student's learning. When you look at the data around dropouts in particular, one of the biggest threats to graduation is actually changing schools. And I don't think we talk about that enough in the city because of the culture of choice that we have, okay? So I do worry that my personal perspective is that education should be an exploratory, well-rounded kind of thing. And I don't need to know that I'm gonna be a SBOE member and want some type of public whatever endorsement when I am 12. I should get to make that decision along the way and still have access. So I really don't know how I feel about this LEAs can make it optional. Cause that's a lot of burden on the parents and the family. I can, however, understand that we in the district have decided that charters can put forth, this is what we do. And some of these things might be outside of people's charters. And so I am wrestling with the tension of how we authorize schools and what we authorize schools to do, and what I believe should be true for all families. Clara.
Yeah, so I think this proposal it could be one of the most exciting ones and connected to pathways and the graduate profile and all that. I think, so I am in favor of expanding them. I think on this point of what should be optional, I think if we feel like there are too many small schools that aren't gonna be able to stand up everything, and we don't wanna mandate that, especially on the charter side, then one thing to think about is, you know, Sally, you talk about world language hubs, like, how can we think about learnings from the Advanced Technical Center model? Like, it doesn't have to be necessarily at your school for you to access it, but there are equity issues there. So, for example, if a school is like a full language school and they're offering Chinese and Arabic and all this stuff, then maybe they open up their doors and they become a hub site. Like, we could think creatively about it, but to Tanya's point, there's gonna have to be a fair amount of planning in that. So I think, I like not closing off the option for a student, but I agree with you. And I think realistically, probably, especially if we expand the list, not every school is gonna be able to offer everything. However, if we keep it as is, then you could probably, you know, then maybe you're doing advanced or CTE, which I don't love either or, and then bioliteracy is just open to anyone who can take the test. So I think that's something to work through, but I think more expansive and more expansive thinking about access could be.
I am also very concerned about the fact that we have larger schools in certain parts of the city where we already have an abundance of programs and pathways. And in parts of the city where I live, schools tend to be smaller, which would mean, again, another thing that we are saying is readily available in certain parts of the city. Other thoughts? Yes.
Okay. I had this thought specifically around financial literacy, but is it possible, given that it is 2026 and so much academics is available online, that OSSE or some body provides an online option to earn an endorsement if it's not available at your school? So if I'm a person who language, you know, I'm a world traveler, I actually speak 3 languages, I'd love to get the seal of biliteracy, but I'm really, really, really trying to get this degree in math and science, and I really need to lean into all these technology classes. I don't actually even need to take that many classes, but can I just, you know, go online to take the class just to get the refresher and then take the exam? I feel like we have options currently that everything doesn't have to involve showing up at a place with a thing. And schools could offer like an X period, or my son had an X period at his school because he didn't want to take financial literacy because it didn't offer an AP value, so it was gonna bring his GPA down, but he had to take it. So he just took it online just to get the credit that was needed to graduate, but you know, he got the knowledge, but it didn't interfere. The school didn't have to do anything. The district provided financial literacy for students who either need to take it in the summer or whatever. So just wondering if that's, if the endorsements could represent a certain set of courses, if that set of courses could be sponsored by Trinity or sponsored by somebody, and students could access them online.
I'm gonna come to Christina. Jen is gonna keep me honest about the folks online.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna get.
So I definitely just want to build on that and say I absolutely agree. As someone who has taught east of the river, love it. But my daughter definitely treks across the city right now to a middle school that is offering her geometry as an 8th grader. And it is simply not an offering at multiple schools east of the river. My preference is that my daughter is not commuting across the city, but what I desire for my daughter and all access to these opportunities and things, it exists in Georgetown. And so I have a massive wonder around the language, the design, the access. If you have Anacostia High School that has 200 students, so it's just absolutely not feasible to offer some of these things, but it's a requirement. The access needs to be, in my mind, needs to come from OSSE. Like OSSE needs to be obligated with this language to ensure that that access is available to every single child across this city.
Well, there's 2 things, like, are we saying that every endorsement has to be offered at every school, or are we saying that at least one? So we didn't specify that.
We did not specify.
So that's one
Is that-
question.
Yes.
And then the second thing is, in the old days, like when the application schools came online, the thought was that students would take, they wanted to play sports, if they wanted to take a certain course, they would go to their neighborhood school. This falls to Glenn in a way, but I sort of feel like the 9 or 10 neighborhood schools should be required to support, maybe through OSSE, maybe through funding. But there has to be a way students have this available, to your point. And that the other thing I was gonna add, we've done these endorsement options. It came up, like, could a small school say, like, our whole thing is service or civil something, or being active in the courts, or doing,
Like
some of the
comments,
debate,
the
or
public
without all
service.
that. Can they propose to OSSE that we would like to offer an endorsement option in that? And you go to that school and you're gonna have the option for bilateral, because you can take that test, or you're gonna be able to get the civic society one, or whatever it is. So I just wonder if there's a way to resolve this, that in the language we use on it. 'Cause there's nobody completely against the idea that kids get extra for what they do extra. But the problem is, that comes up in a lot, that the students have to have access to it. So it is, how do we provide that and make it clear and make it required by someone to do it?
So what
Okay.
Christina seemed to be saying is, if an LEA cannot provide it, OSSE is obligated to provide it.
Yes.
Or DCPS is funded to provide it in Anacostia.
So I'm gonna come to Dan, and I wanna, I'm gonna come to Dan, and I am, wanna, put something on the table. DCPS is a LEA. And what you described is difference in programming across the LEA. So technically, DCPS could offer this, all of the pathways at Wilson only. And would be in compliance with the requirement as written. Because I think sometimes, because of the fact that we have single site charters, which are their own LEAs. And then we have Friendship, KIPP, DCPS. There's a difference between making it optional for an LEA entirely to offer, and saying an LEA must offer these pathways across all students. Both have limitations as far as who has what, but I just want to note that, because what you described, which I know is a real problem. Is still DCPS offering something in one part of the city, and technically could satisfy this. And so I want to make sure that in our language, if that's something we're concerned about, we have language that gives us to all students and not just all areas. Those are two different problems. Dan.
So the students already just finished from the advanced course. And I think you can disable that as an enforcement option.
I can't.
Lean into the individualized course.
I'm gonna repeat it. So
I'm sorry, I was saying we could probably table, a lot of this discussion is around access is based on advanced coursework. And if you table that part of it and lean more into the individualized course, you're able, all LEAs can do that individualized course. Or no, not all schools are able to provide that individualized course criteria for it's way broader than the criteria for the advanced coursework is IB or APD or doing the phone.
So you're saying that broaden what issue to an endorsement, more similar to what the individualized endorsement has across the endorsement categories.
Correct. And about literacies, success. CTEs already exist as it is. The one that's challenging is the advanced coursework. That is, say, are we making all LEAs provide AP options available, or these IB options available? But if not that, or do, they have students in the moment, which is more into the CTE programs, doing wrong to all students. So I think we can talk more about the individualized enforcement, creating stronger pathways there seems to be more beneficial, because when I think about the challenge of the individualized endorsement, was to say I created individual endorsement for STEM for my LEA, how is that different from the individualized versus from this other LEA? And if I'm a university, I'm looking at it like, what's the difference here? Is there a difference? What does that actually mean? What does that pathway look like?
Can I ask a question around
Yeah.
that? So how is it noted currently on the transcript? Like you're taking a dual enrollment, does the transcript say that?
That, it says, it'll say Trinity University
It does say on the transcript.
introduced, medical terminology. And it'll
On
be
the
on
high
there.
school site.
It'll be on there. It'll be on the, it should be on the transcript that they took a class out of area, out of
I
district.
think that they would like.
So it sounds like we have some differences. It sounds like we have some differences across LEAs, Glenn.
Yeah, so two things that I would note, in response to how it shows up on the transcript, and so there are differences across LEAs. Because in DCPS, a student has the choice to determine if that course will show up on their high school transcript through the dual credit process. And so they'll always have their college transcript, but it's the student choice to determine if it's gonna appear, because it does have GPA implications, of course. And then the second that I would wonder is, as we think about the endorsements, the idea around the state agency ensuring access across all LEAs does in fact sound quite interesting, because I think the challenges around equity appear to be more in the non-DCPS world, because, and at least I'm just speaking from our guidance, all of our schools in DCPS are required to offer X number of AP courses. All of our students do have access to dual enrollment, inclusive of many, many opportunities, and all DCPS students have access to CTE, either in their building or at two high schools where they go to the Advanced Technical Center. On the charter world, students have access to the ATCs as well. They don't all have access to the APs, but they do have access to the dual enrollment through the OTC consortium. So I think the access questions that we have really live more in our charters that may not have either it built into their charter to be specialized in this way, or have master schedules that allow them to create the opportunities for students in this way.
Yes, and then I'm gonna move us to the more options.
Mine might not be on that. Mine
Okay.
is about the language around the GPA. It would be good to clarify if that's weighted or unweighted, 2.5 for APs. If that's weighted, it's actually a 1.5. So I would think it should be a little higher, or just say that's unweighted.
Okay, hey, Luke's making a note. All right. So it sounds like, I'm gonna try to summarize what came out of this part of the discussion, because I don't wanna assume that I'm getting it right, and it's your opportunity to say no, every roast that's nuts. What I heard is that this idea that RC needs to take some responsibility here, to ensure equitable access is something we want to recommend. Because we not only want to see this across schools, we want to make sure if there are places where a LEA cannot provide this, they still have a pathway. And that there are a couple of things on the table that could address that, whether that be online coursework, whether that be, I can't remember all the things, Haley took the notes. But this idea, hubs, yes, thank you, Sally. But this idea that there needs to be something else that supports this is really important if we want all students to have access, yes? Okay. I'm gonna move us to the more options. All right, so I noted in the community service discussion that I believe that, I too think that community service is a very good experience. I also know that we have LEAs in individual schools who require kids to get a lot more hours. And I'm a fan of getting credit and for it to be like so I would like to introduce the option of endorsement for community service. You can call it whatever, I don't care. But I would like there to be something that encourages students to go beyond the 60 hours and reward students who do go beyond the 60 hours. So that's something I would like to put on the table. Laura, you mentioned making the capstone and endorsement possibly. Would you like to discuss here?
Well, I guess what was at least floated by our members, not necessarily like that they think it's the be all end all, but that to earn the endorsement, like, we don't like the capstone. I mean, we get to that, we're gonna say that. But when we get to the diploma endorsements, there was a thought that if there has to be a capstone, and then Aussie's like, I will never get rid of this. Then maybe you put it on the endorsement, but to get the endorsement, you need to do some type of capstone that's associated with the endorsement.
Any other
I support
options
that.
we wanna float?
So, a couple things, so on the community service piece, I mean, a public service one could be interesting. I'm not to introduce this, you guys can next this, but there are things students do that are above and beyond, like robotics, debate, like there's a lot of stuff, but it's not really a academic pathway. And so I wonder if there is like a subset of, I was using the term badges, but you could see like having the endorsements, which is like a bigger course of study and then smaller kind of recognition. So that's just one thing. I think for the options, I mean, arts and foreign language are two that, I think if we think about this as how do you change behavior, get students excited, recognize them, but also get our city and LEAs to act a certain way. Those are two that are, I think for a lot of students important, not for all. So that's one category. And then work-based learning comes up so much. I'm not exactly sure what to do with that, but obviously CTE students have that as part of the program. But for non-CTE, what if you do SYEP every summer? Maybe that's just it. It is, that's what it is, right? But do we want to encourage that, recognize that, et cetera? So I would say public service and the work-based learning piece are kind of maybes. I think arts and world language, I'm curious what Sally thinks there. Field of biliteracy probably covers a lot, but what if you're not proficient, but you've taken 4 courses of, you know, of an advanced language? And then, yeah, and then I personally would separate dual enrollment from, like, I would make IB, AP, and dual enrollment 3 separate. But
Can I, oh, wait, I have something specifically about the language. So when I think about, so I took Spanish all the way through college. But my Spanish courses weren't just language courses, they were also, culture.
Yeah.
What is it? What are the words? At the end of the day, y'all know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, so my degree says, Spanish studies or something, right? So maybe there is something more broad, that gets into, and I'm gonna confuse Sally, that is something that is not just the actual, like the language arts of it, but acknowledges the broader humanities of it, piece of it. Sally, what are your thoughts?
So with the seal of biliteracy, there's also a seal of biliteracy with distinction, which requires evidence of cultural competence, that you've done other things related to the language. So that can really be built into the seal of biliteracy, which is at its core, it's really about the language proficiency, but I love that. And you could, that's part of the endorsement, to have a seal with distinction.
So that sounds good. I also, what I heard Clara say though, what if there are kids who might have the competence? So maybe, I don't know who brought it up about students who, the higher languages are offered, like maybe, was that you, let's say a kid comes in speaking, Amharic at home, right? I would imagine, that even if they're not getting Amharic classes, that they actually might be able to display a lot of the cultural competency. How does that play in with like the seal of distinction? Is there something else? You know what I mean?
So
Like, is it an and both?
seal of biliteracy is for both groups, both subsets, English language learners who come with the language. It doesn't look at how you learn a language, so you don't have to learn it in a classroom. So a lot of the students that can get seal of biliteracy, they have to be able to speak English, be proficient in English, but also their own language. The basic test is just speaking, reading, listening, writing.
Yeah.
But again, you can add that extra layer, and it's just called with distinction. And again, I don't want to veer off beyond the bounds of this discussion, but two things and I want to respond to Claire's comment. That equitable access issue is something I've raised many times. Seal of Biliteracy is only for students who have achieved the equivalent of 4 years of a language. Many of our students, probably most, don't have access to the higher level language classes, both within DCPS and then in the other LEAs. And that's why having competency-based credit that applies more broadly, not just for the kids that can qualify for the seal, but that could earn 2 credits. Do the equivalent. That's another proposal.
We do have competency, a placeholder for your competency.
Okay, I didn't know where that comes in. And so I think competency-based credit in that sense is important. And going back to this point of the hubs, my feeling is a lot of what you mentioned should be elective courses, not badges, not just badges, but if you're taking a language, if you're taking art, but it might be a science course that is offered at a hub, but it's not offered inter-school. So again, this is a long-term process that takes money, but I think we need to start thinking about outside learning that complements what goes on in the school, not
Okay.
substitutes for it.
I'm
Whenever that comes in.
coming to Kathy, I'm looking at Haley to keep me honest. And I'm seeing what else on the list we did not get to.
You need to wrap up in the next few minutes, probably should have wrapped up.
Well, no, this is, I mean, I think it's to add more. What I realize is there's some kids that do the DC Youth Orchestra for 4 years or without a huge amount of effort in that, or are dancers, or I think as we open up this endorsement thing and we look at things learned outside and activities done outside, whether it's community service or youth orchestra, or somebody who's actually a ballet dancer and does all of that, are we saying that again, it's gonna go back to athlete in terms of who awards an endorsement? It doesn't happen in the school. It either happens through a seal of biliteracy that you can get, or are we opening all this up? So I'm not saying we're gonna nail this down right now, but I am saying that once we put this out there, these other things are going to come up. That students put an enormous amount of time in, and it doesn't show anywhere.
So it's academic versus non-academic. What is that?
Academic versus non-academic.
Yeah. I mean, some people might say the music
Yeah.
is in here somehow, yeah.
Mine is just clarifying your proposal. Does it include paid and unpaid or just unpaid?
Oh, for the community service.
Yeah, that's the other piece.
I didn't consider that.
Gotcha.
My proposal is just, if it's over, so whatever definition we land on, for that, if there are kids who do 250 hours of that, then they should get credit for it. I am not presupposing our definition. Okay. Next. Robert,
Yes,
what would you like? to
Thank you.
go?
oh no, you've done a lot. I'm gonna try to do my part.
You want to do it now?
Yeah, perfect.
That's what I heard. I'm always happy to get my steps in. Like y'all not gonna keep me seated.
All right, so our next topic is the core content areas, and we will go one by one through what OSSI has proposed. So the first section we're going to discuss is math. So the proposal is to maintain 4 credits. The change is to designate that 4 credits have to include Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, or an equivalent integrated math course. And so where our straw poll landed was 2/3 in favor, supporting it as is, and then a significant number supporting with modifications. And then someone probably said no. So, and the feedback that we got primarily was to keep Algebra 2 as a requirement. And is that the only one? All right. And we'll pause for our added context.
The UDC. Collaborative and urban. So research indicates that greater exposure to math in high school linked with better labor market outcomes, increased financial literacy, increased student engagement. Oh, I should mention, they actually supported Maryland in their process of updating graduation requirements in 2018. So some of this is the same information that Maryland used to make their decision, which their decision was to ultimately opt for offering either Algebra 2 or integrated math. One recent study found that state changes to the minimum requirements is especially beneficial for African American students. Analysts recommend aligning requirements with higher education admissions standards, especially as a way to close the preparation gap for under-resourced students. So in Maryland, they determined that the state university system requires Algebra 2, but many of the community colleges determined that the math students needed to not require remediation was actually Algebra 1 and geometry, but not Algebra 2. So those students could still attend community college if that was their desired path, without that Algebra 2 requirement. And evidence suggests, that there's a trade-off of both positive and unintended consequences. Higher math requirements can actually decrease the likelihood of students attending a four-year college in the semester right after high school. And because of equity considerations, Maryland opted not to require Algebra 2 as one of the 4 math credits. All students still have to take 4, but they opted either Algebra 2 or a higher level integrated math course. So we'll go back to your thoughts on that and proceed.
All right, so first I want to point you to in the packet for the course core content. We have a lengthy proposal from Yvette Selby, and I want you all to see that, and I'll invite Ms. Selby to speak just to summarize it with the headlines of her perspective on this. And she's online.
Sure. So I had done a lot of research in this area, especially after seeing the proposed requirements saying Algebra 2 and or integrated math, but not really defining what that meant. So a lot of the sources that are in the paper speak to the fact that algebraic reasoning will be important for the future of workforce. A lot of the studies went from probably 2018 on, and they really align with where you're seeing the workforce go in terms of a technology-based workforce, and the fact that students should be well-versed in algebraic thinking. That's a lot of what's in the paper. The question I kind of have around Maryland's requirements is, when are they making those changes? And we've seen that in the past year alone, with the emergence of AI and the use of AI, it's more important than ever that kids understand logic-based thinking, how to read models, how to read patterns, and all of these things are that pipeline is what you get in Algebra 2. So when somebody says, well, they can just do data analysis or quantitative reasoning or some other course, the really true only equivalent course to Algebra 2 is Math 3, integrated Math 3. If you can show that there are other courses that include algebraic reasoning, then you can propose, okay, you don't have to take Algebra 2, but you can take something else. But it should still meet the same quality. people also talked about statistics is, and these are some of the comments that I'm saying that I've heard. Oh, they can just take statistics. But when you look at introductory statistics, it's different than AP level statistics. So a lot of the baseline components have algebraic reasoning. And then so the other key components of the paper is, while DC does not require students to have Algebra 2 if they're in a CTE program, just the number of CTE programs that we offer in the district, about half of them are in the technology, engineering, or STEM related field like health services. And at some point, you would have to have a very good understanding of that algebraic reasoning to actually have a career that's successful, even though you might be in a certain CTE program, graduate with that CTE thing. But if you don't have the other courses, you may not be successful. You may still have to take a remedial pathway when you get into college or some other application of that profession. So that's basically what the report's about. I think we need to have some really good clarity on when we say we don't Algebra 2 and what that substitution would be.
So what I'm hearing you say is that if the language were Algebra 2 or integrated math 3, that would satisfy that requirement?
Yes. But if we add the other things like the quantitative data analysis and the other thing that was somewhat discussed in the back presentations that we had about 4 months ago,
That would not be a substitute.
That's not an exact one-to-one substitute.
Okay. Christina?
I have a clarifying question after seeing some of those pieces about, please. After seeing why Maryland decided the way that they did to make Algebra 2 no longer a requirement, it had me thinking about, if it is a requirement, how many young people are being shut out from their diploma opportunities versus those who are benefiting from having to take Algebra 2. And what I'm thinking about is, like, my daughter is enrolled in the Georgetown REACH program. It's been very informational. Any of our students on any college prep track of any sort must take certain courses regardless of what is required by the district. And so my wonder is, how many lose out with this requirement versus who's benefiting? And I am making an assumption, but then I'm also thinking about literacy rates, math proficiency rates and things, and what the data is saying in DC. And I strongly believe we're shutting out more children of color if we keep Algebra 2 as a requirement. And when we do think about the job force, yes, when we think about certain career pathways, not every child, there's not enough room for all of our youth to continue in those pathways. There are so many other pathways that simply don't have a need for Algebra 2. And so that optional language, I think, is really something when we're looking at the complexities of the District of Columbia and the youth that we serve, would be a critical adjustment to language.
Thank you, Kathy.
I wanted to, the Department of Energy and Environment sent a letter where Algebra 2 is a prerequisite for apprenticeships with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And so there was other things that we're not realizing, that we think of Algebra 2 just being college. The other thing that concerned me is the way Maryland described it, that you don't need Algebra 2 to get into a community college. So I guess what I suggested is, maybe this math 3 gives you a lot of the skills, but you need Algebra 2. But you made the decision when you were a sophomore and you realized you wanted to be an electrician when you were a senior, and now you didn't do it. Could we offer, if you get a lot of the Algebra 2 skills in that math 3, can we offer the chance to get algebra 2 credit through a test, which in math and world language, we have better tests to give credit, so that we aren't asking a student to make the decision about whether they're going to go to community college or real college, or, get to be in the Brotherhood of Electrical Workers or not when they're younger. And that's the fear that I have, that you have to make that decision too young. And I mean, I don't know enough about what's we're locking out. We're saying a lot of this is in, but we don't get to see the curriculum, and I'm not well versed enough to see how good of a match it is in what we're blocking out.
Okay, so I saw Laura, Bridget, and
And we have Yvette's hand as well, but I don't know if that's from before.
Laura.
So W2, when we met a bunch of times and then did like a broader survey of our membership, does have mixed feelings about this. We did have some teachers who teach algebra 2 that were like, please get rid of it. And we had, other teachers who also teach it were like, no, absolutely not, right? So it is not something where our membership was clearly unified. But what I will say, and I will be saying it a whole lot in this section, and I will never get off this train till the day I die, which is that the second you remove a requirement, DCPS removes courses from our classrooms and teachers lose their jobs and students lose access. That is what happens every time. It will happen here. It will happen in science, etc. So I do caution that, like, I understand like the drive to help our students not have to clear different hurdles that might not make sense for them. But at the same time, like, why is algebra 2 such a big hurdle? Unfortunately, I think it's because our district passes kids along far too often without actually investing in helping them catch up. And I don't believe in just holding kids back either, but we're not doing the work. And so then we say, well, let's reduce the barrier. And there may be good reasons to reduce this particular one. I'm not, again, like even the teachers who teach it had mixed results. I'm not saying necessarily this is a terrible barrier to get rid of. But it does kind of seem like to some extent we're holding up our hands and you're like, we can't figure this one out. So let's give like students a pathway around it. I'll be honest though, like teachers, we pass kids, like without them mastering the material. Like, I'm sorry, it's sad but true, right? I was guilty of it too. Like at some point, like they may not know everything, but they've done enough. And you're kind of like, it's much more important that this student graduate than I hold them back for DC history. Like it just is. And they've done enough work, even if I couldn't say, yes, you have mastered DC history, and I'm very, very proud of everything you've learned. And I think, math teachers often also make similar calls, like they try to just help them through, they get them to do enough work where they feel like I'm not doing a serious disservice, but this probably isn't where I want it, and the student passes along, right? Like, and I think like teachers make that for a good reason, because we can't make up for systemic failures by ourselves. And like holding a kid back doesn't always solve the issue and might make it where they're leaving. Like, that's it, I'm done, I'm dropping out, I can't do this, it's over. So I get like why we all are making these decisions, but I just, caution as we start to look at some of these, like, are we trying to policy our way out of a systemic failure rather than trying to fix the systemic failure? And maybe that's what we need to do for now, because we're not going to fix it anytime soon, and we need to help students kind of survive these courses. But I don't know, I think this one's a tough one, and I know my membership is very divided.
All right, Bridget.
So the one thing I will caution is, as a almost 20-year college counselor, Ms. Selby, both her kids were my students. I will tell you, Algebra 2 is not even the baseline. A significant number of colleges require pre-calculus or a higher math after Algebra 2. And unfortunately, and we all know 5 students who are super smart, but they didn't get it together until 11th or 12th grade. When someone says college might be an option, actually you dribble the ball really good and a college might look at you, but you don't have the basic math to go to the next level. And we're setting kids, the whole thing about reducing requirements and making it easier for students to graduate, it leaves a very bad taste in my mouth. And I think if Algebra 2 is the highest requirement, then that would be a change. But right now, for the vast majority of schools, other than UBC Community College, not UBC, UBC Community College, requires Algebra 2 as a minimum. Most require pre-calculus or AP math after Algebra 2 to support students. But I also agree with the woman at the end. Kids are getting passed along in math post-COVID because it's hard. And so it would be, in my mind, I remember in the older days, because I'm old, we had pre-algebra as a class for high school. And if a student did pre-algebra, because algebra, as we all know, is the math gateway drug, you know, if you did pre-algebra and then geometry and algebra 2, you'd have a stronger footing for being successful in college. And then the last thing I will say is I have found, in particular with my young men of color, and this is fully anecdotal, I have no research, a lot of those young men do not really seriously think about college until about 11th grade, when someone says, you can do this, and they go, really? Like, they won't internalize it until it's close enough to grasp. If you ask 9th graders, they'll say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer, I want to do all these things. When you catch them in 11th grade, it's a different conversation, but there are some who will turn that corner with you if you push them, but by then they don't have the credentials to even get into, you know, some of the local four-year college, definitely not Georgetown, definitely not American or GW or any of the four-year schools that would give a student. So we're really broadening the divide. We're making it easier for there to be a broader gap between kind of the haves and have-nots.
All right, I'm gonna go to Tanya.
So two things. One, just on the local unions, no, none of them require algebra 2 the class. But they will require math tests that has algebra 1, algebra 2, and geometry concepts on it. But you can be, they have a DC specific program for students who are interested, and they can step up into it and then take a year to prepare for the exam. But I think what the industry folks are really concerned more about is not the checkbox of algebra 2, which I'm not saying that's what this is, but the learning of the concepts, right? And so I think if we, and being ready and being able to apply them. So I think if we are looking at the 4 option as an equally rigorous career connected learning option, that opens those doors and make sure that you're still showing up to school and you're still able to prepare yourself or build up for what you're looking to do. I think that the industry, just from the industry perspective, they are really excited about that.
All right, thanks.
Oh, it's my turn now?
It's your turn.
Okay, so I realized I was 02. I think I took pre-algebra. I'm almost certain I took pre-algebra at some point. I think I have different thoughts. I like Yvette's proposal of specification around Math 3, and I really appreciate the thought that has put into what are the skills students need. I don't know, I think, and I appreciate Laura's framing of floor versus ceiling. I think I'm thinking of floor as like foundation, because I feel like we expect folks to make a decision about their whole life, and it's not their whole life. And college is not a destination, it's kind of a stop on the way. It's asking people, we talk about these things like, okay, if you do these things, then you kind of for real end up in this straight line pathway that doesn't actually exist. And so I try to think of the frame of what are the skills we want what are the skills we're saying young people should have when they leave high school, period. No matter what they want to be. Like I tell people about my mom all the time because she actually was a union electrician, and then she later went to UDC and became a teacher. But she didn't have to take remedial courses, and it wasn't like a lesser path. She had a well-rounded education and could make those decisions for herself. And so that is why I appreciate what Yvette has put forward. I do think I do want us to have a little bit of hesitancy around the why we are removing something. I actually don't think it's a bad thing as we have looked across, that our standards are higher than most states. I think our standards should be higher than most states because quite frankly, our industries in DC require a more educated workforce. And so I really am not trying to get to where Maryland is trying to get to, or where West Virginia is trying to get to, or higher. I don't care. I am thinking about what does it take for our kids to be successful here? And so I think a best proposal makes a lot of sense to me with that level of specification. I could be comfortable with that. If not, then I am most comfortable with just leaving the algebra 2 because I don't understand the rationale to remove it.
Can I ask one?
Mhm.
To Laura's point, I thought that we would be requiring every school to offer algebra 2. That students would have that choice. That's not necessarily written that way, but that's a big deal. If they don't have the option to take.
We're not, I don't think I'm gonna be honest, Kathy. I don't think we can, at the state level, I don't know of anything that says LEAs have to offer things that are not required. That's like the opposite of a requirement. Like that's what makes it, you know what I mean? That's what makes it a requirement. And so I'm not saying that means that there will be algebra 2 nowhere in DCPS. I can't look at a crystal ball and say that. But the idea that folks have to do something that is not required is the opposite of a requirement. Once it's not a requirement, it's an option.
I'm sorry, we've got
In my
a
opinion.
queue, but I'm.
Well, as a math professor, I'm
Yes.
gonna say everybody needs to take algebra too. No, but I did want to mention that, 6 years ago at Trinity, most of, over 50% of students from DCPS come to Trinity. And so 6 years ago, we did a study and we found that even students who had done algebra 2 in DCPS come to Trinity and they had to be placed. Back then, we used to have an introductory algebra and then an intermediate algebra and then college algebra. And so we did away with those placements because we said every student coming from schools have to go through college algebra. So college algebra is algebra 2. And so they come, they take that if they want to be STEM majors, but then we added 2 more pathways for the non-STEM majors. So the idea that the high school would do away with algebra 2, I'm not in favor of that because I think offering them algebra 2 in high school is when they decide whether they want to go into STEM or whether they want to go into a non-STEM field, and they do that at college when they come in as freshmen. So I'm not in favor of doing away with algebra 2, and going back to Bridget's point, I think we need to strengthen it and make sure that our students who get through it well so that they can decide whether they want to go into that area or not.
Got Eleni, Glenn, and then Christina.
And you have a comment in chat.
Yeah, that's a comment. I have 2 points. One, I do see, this was going back to Laura, your mention about jobs. And I see this different than science because it's still keeping the 4 credits. So the class is still there, it's just shifting. And my second point is when we tried to create pipelines for math, we had to push algebra 2 to 10th grade. So kids were begging for pre-calc. No one passes AP Calc, not no one. It's the DCPS I taught at.
Yeah.
It's very tough and kids beg for pre-calc, AP pre-calc. And so AP pre-calc is a AP class as well. And so to have AP pre-calc is 11th grade, what can you not have? Algebra 2. So I do think there's a deficit mindset when we're just talking about it as the remedial, because when you're creating flexibility for all. We're not just talking about, I don't know, I just hear a lot about community college and there's nothing else without algebra 2, but there are a lot of other classes, especially going to your part about Tanya, about classes specific for your workforce, or if you're in CT, if you're doing biosciences, there are different maths you need than this class, and depending on your pathway. And so it does say an equivalent class. It's not saying you're not taking a math class, but I don't know. Every school has to become creative about it, but I do know at some of the schools I've been at, to create space for other classes, they've had to like push Algebra 2 to, different places and just kind of like skip through it quickly or whatnot because they were trying to get to other courses. And I do think, to go back to statistics, a lot of programs that are trying to do global service or global studies need statistics, like the real statistics on that level. And so, every school is just so different. But if this whole purpose is to create flexibility, I do echo what Ebony Rose said about like the hesitancy of kind of like removing requirements. Even though I get your point, Kathy, because I don't see a school where they won't have Algebra 2, but yes, I don't think you can mandate it. But I would just see it as options.
But only for the.
Glenn.
I'll be very quick. I think I wanna like double stamp when it's a or and a requirement means you must. Students in that building may now no longer have access to the Algebra 2, which is a prerequisite to so many opportunities. Is my first point. My second is some of those opportunities are what we have baked into other recommendations. IB, for example, you cannot get an IB diploma unless you have passed Algebra 2, which now qualifies you for IB Math 1 and IB Math 2. So just want to be very thoughtful around if it becomes an or, and now students don't have access to those other opportunities that they typically would because the school or the LEA made a choice to now only offer the integrated. And then the third is, I just want to remind this group, there's the math task force that OSSE has that is also digging deep into what if there's a world where it's not Algebra 1, geometry, Algebra 2, where it now becomes integrated math 1, integrated math 2, integrated math 3. And so the language around or the equivalent math course, I think, is exciting because then it doesn't lock us into whatever this math task force is coming up with around what the equivalent of Algebra 2 would then be. Like if we name it has to be math 3, then that may not be in alignment with what the math task force is saying, because we know that there's also a number of students who in middle school are taking Algebra 1 geometry, and the math task force may say that the integrated doesn't apply to the middle school grades, it only applies to the high school grades. Like we don't know what's happening in that other world.
Christina.
I guess clarifying, we're saying yes for credits. Yes
Yes.
for math credit.
Yes,
Correct.
for math.
For math credits means you still have to take the math courses you need for whatever career track you choose to be on, correct?
Not necessarily.
Currently, it's the four math, including Algebra 1 geometry, Algebra 2, and a fourth math, which might be a math elective, it might be a dual credit, it might be financial literacy. There's a laundry list of courses that can count as a fourth math. It doesn't have to be AP pre-calculus or AP calculus.
Okay. But it's creating space for them to take the math courses that put them on track for
Whatever they choose.
whatever they choose. So in this case, taking Algebra 2 off means they're taking 2 math courses now that would be more intentional towards the career path that they choose.
What are those?
I think that's
Yes.
I think that's the tension. I think what, the tension is how much flexibility do you give? And how much is prescriptiveness in this case important? So, what Eleni described was, there are kids who will take higher level courses or will take courses aligned with certain pathways they want to be on. What I also heard described, and I feel like Laura did it best, was like, okay, so there are kids who they haven't picked anything, they don't know. And they just maybe they don't like math. And so therefore, they're not going to pick, or Kathy said maybe they figure out in 12th grade, they want to be an electrician. And so they still aren't necessary, even though they have more space, what they're filling those spaces with is less dictated. And so in some cases, it might not be building towards something. And so they still might not get what's needed for whatever they choose to be.
And so
And so
that's
that's
where
the
concern
discussion
of
we're
schools
having.
may not offer Algebra 2 then. And so we're under the belief that our secondary schools would take away algebra 2 and not provide real proper math offering.
I am not saying that is the collective belief. That has been put on the table.
Something has to fill the gap if algebra 2 is not there, correct?
Correct,
Is the
but
concern
Well,
that
algebra
schools
three.
would then
It's
select?
and integrated three. You have to take, you're not creating just an electric graph. You have to take that integrated math.
yes,
It will still be a math course, but
Yeah.
if it's not a requirement, then there is no requirement that the LEA or the school has to offer that.
Then my next wonder with this whole conversation is with these career prep proposals in here as well that have come up, would this not be something that circles back around to these required career prep conversations? Because what it sounds like is regardless, every secondary student needs to have had conversations in 9th grade that get them on the right track by 9th grade. According to some folks at Georgetown, just told me as a mother last week, geometry has got to be taken no later than 9th grade. And so I'm hearing this math piece, but every child needs to be sat down and know by 9th grade which courses you aspire, intend to take. Like, that's what has to be required, that we are sitting you down by 9th grade.
There you are, you're 13, do you know?
I know, that's true.
Oh.
Georgetown University is naming it plain as day, that if you are even remotely going to consider Georgetown University, that geometry needs to be knocked off by 9th grade.
No, I
DC
get that.
Public Schools has children in middle school pathways where they're well aware of this and already have children on those pathways. So it's not that our schools don't know. They're already doing it. The schools know what they need to do.
All right, so we're gonna let.
So,
Yvette
we
have
can,
a
yeah.
word.
So everything you are saying is sort of where you see the future, right? The projection. Compact 2043 is saying we want kids to take algebra by the 8th grade, because that is actually the trend based on where we are from a technology standpoint and where we're going to go. So yes, so that is why you see that in some schools. We also know that the testing occurs at Algebra 1 and geometry. The next testing that the kids have to meet in high school is to take the SAT test, their 11th grade year, right? So, I mean, I know there's other testing like the MAP and the iReadies and the other things, but in terms of the requirement, so there's no real test that has to happen that says you have to pass this Algebra 2 test as a marker of your proficiency, right? Okay, so if you then say, and I'm speaking now from a parent and an equity, because I'm in PAVE, Parents Amplifying Voice of Education. And so they have made it clear to me that they are seeing this as being an equitable issue, that if your students don't have those courses because they're not required, by the time they get to 10th grade, when they're in 11th grade, when they're asked to take these courses, it's really too late for them to be changing to a school that does offer it. And then they become not prepared. And in some cases, what you have seen is when it's time for their kids to go to college, that they have the good grades, they're considered provisional students. You have to now take these other courses before you'll fully get put in my school. Or from a remedial standpoint, I have to start you here. And so that may set you back. So I guess what I'm saying is I get concerned when you start to reduce the requirements, maybe because they say it's too hard, or I don't know what the issue is. I don't know what, and I can't find the data that says that kids don't have to have Algebra 2 and can still be successful in this world that we're moving towards. Now, I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying, where's the data that shows that? And we have so many, and again, the reason why I wrote the proposal the way I did is because as an engineer, and I'm now at a National Society of Black Engineers meeting, so I'm talking to college students. And we talk about the struggles that college students face when they want to go into engineering and they didn't have the access to those classes and how far they have to start back and how long it takes them to get through college. And they're at a deficit, some students are, when they don't have that exposure. And where you see that is in urban communities, similar to what we have in DC, where they don't have the access. So then it becomes an equity issue, and then it becomes a civil issue. And I get concerned that if we lower the requirements, though some schools may not teach that. We can't find an algebra teacher. We can't find a math teacher. So we're just not going to offer that. And it's really going to be too late for that, those parents who, where we have school choice, to be able to move their child somewhere else that will better benefit them. So that's just my spiel from an equity, but I also do in my proposal talk about the reasoning, the algebraic reasoning, the quantitative analysis, the fact that we have to teach kids patterns, they have to learn all of these logic systems. And that is why there's that big push in the technological world to start kids doing algebra by 8th grade. So yes, they would have algebra 2 by 10th grade, and hopefully they can go into their CT specific classes that really hone them and get them into the application-based learning that the kids say they want to do. And that's why they join the CTE programs, and they can do that later on, 11th and 12th grade. So that's kind of the rationale for my proposal, because I tend to think holistically because of the work that I do in STEM and the students that I work with who are in college and young professionals and beyond in this realm, and sort of what the trends are starting to look like and how their learning has impacted their ability to move forward in their careers and, you know, getting what they need in the engineering and also technology and also science and math spaces that they're in.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much for
Yvette.
that. I want to flag for folks, 2 things. One, it's 7:08 PM. We said this meeting would end at 7:07, probably about 7:05 is whenever I went over and got the Twix. So I don't know if I'm the only one kind of running. Yeah, there's plenty of. Listen, I don't know if I'm the only one that's running out of steam, but I do want to flag we are at 7. So we said we were not going to get all the way through all of the recommendations. Our hope was that we were going to wrap up the recommendation around core content tonight. So I'm going to pose a question. Do we want to keep going around core content this evening? Do people want time to consider some of the things they've heard tonight, including Yvette's proposal? Because, you know, in a perfect world, you read everything before the meeting. I personally witnessed a couple new slides real time, so no judgment, I understand. How do folks want to move forward? I also have a question, a comment in the chat that I don't think we got to read, so I do want to read it. So let me think about that. Let me read the comment first. And then I want to be respectful because we are all adults. We're not holding anyone hostage here. It's not a requirement that you stay flat past 7. Christy Dennis, thank you for your patience, Christy. Christy Dennis said, I too personally feel concerned about how students not taking Algebra 2 will impact how students measure up to their counterparts in other states, districts, especially when choosing college as a post-secondary opportunity. Okay.
Yeah.
So do we want to, is this a good stopping point? Do we want to continue with this discussion for a certain amount of time and pick it up next? Well, how are people feeling? I see heads. I'm gonna go. I saw your hand first, and then I'm gonna come this way.
Well,
Yes.
just really quick, would it be helpful to have a timer, since you said 15 at first, and just have like 10 minutes for each as a starting point?
Oh, you mean visually?
No, just a person or visually.
Oh,
either way
Haley.
To just,
Haley is the person. She.
oh,
But when
sorry.
the wonders that we're running out of time.
It's my fault.
Maybe a harsher time.
I'm letting people cook.
I'm happy to be more forceful with the time commitments, but I also want to make sure that we do put the things on the table, because what I don't want is for us to not hash the thoughts out, and then it's like, Surprise, that's not what I meant when we compile all the thoughts of the recommendations. So, they are guideposts. But the real point is to, get to a place where we feel like we understand each other. But we can be a little more,
I
Yeah.
feel, it's my turn.
yeah.
I feel concerned that we have a lot ahead of us, that we haven't touched science or career in tech or financial literacy. And so and I'm worried because I did that April 9th meeting, I can only come for 1 hour of it if it's gonna be from 5 to 7. So I'm hoping, so I don't know if 2 hours is enough for what we put here, and I know I don't want to stay longer than another half hour at the most, and I don't see how we're gonna get through the things that are on here in that amount of time, given that we're not, we kind of laid out the land, but we didn't reach consensus on what we just discussed. So that's my thought. I mean, I could stay till 7:30. We're already 7:10, but I don't see how that, and I'm worried about April 9th, it's as if we're gonna wrap it all up there, and I really want to be part of this, so I have a conflict from 6 to 7:30 on that night.
Yeah, that's fair. We thought that the community service in particular would go a lot faster than it.
Yeah, we were trying, yes.
I just have one technical thing, that I'd just like to be included in the record. So when DC is measuring, performance, they often include SAT and ACT test results, and please know that the SAT includes Algebra 2. And when we are measured nationally across, when schools are ranked nationally, those are things that they consider. So if you remove the SAT as a requirement for schools, it may impact DC's overall standing and rating as a school system. And as well, I would love for, to get some clarification from Afi as to how schools will be held accountable for test results if they're removing one of the requirements, from one of the exams. So that's just unrelated, but.
No, it is related. So, I see a yes, I agree, Bridget, in the chat. So is it okay? Can I assume that folks who will go until 7:30, and if anyone does not want to go until 7:30, we will not judge you because you are an adult and it's your life.
Our babysitter,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, that's real. I don't want anybody to feel any pressure
I
there.
can stay an hour away, I can leave.
Yes. So I want to make sure, but we can, but for folks who want to continue to discuss this topic, we will stay until 7:30, and it is okay if you have to leave now. I'm going to turn it back over to Robert.
All right, so next is science, which I'm sure will take us to 7:30. Yeah, go ahead.
Can we allow for the flexible option for the students, but require that each LEA offer? Just, I don't know the answer, don't do it.
Can you say it again more slowly?
Require each school offer Algebra 2, so not losing that, but allow the students the flexibility to choose their path.
Require the LEA
Yes,
or
for
the
all
school.
Require the LEA, but it might have to be school, I don't know. So that's the thing with the regulation. that they're
Oh,
offering.
I'll ask you what you want.
I think should be by school, but to the idea of like endorsement or options, like if you have to leave your school to take Algebra 2, I don't know, but maybe requiring the subject itself, but then allow students.
Okay,
Really quick, I'm not doing anything.
Barbara's in charge though.
Oh, sorry. Really quick, I mean, Oxy has had success, I think, in the credit equivalency work, like with CTE, which seems very popular. So I think this is kind of what we're talking about, so it has to be equivalent. So I think if it's framed that way, maybe that'll be an easier pill, I don't know. I don't feel strongly about this one, but it just feels like that, we're trying to get it more flexibility, more things that students are interested in, but not reduce the teacher workforce, not remove content that students need or rigor. So I feel like that's maybe framing it that way in teachers. It is, it has to be, you know, it's different process for. Okay.
All right, science. So this is of the core course content, this is where ASSIA has proposed a reduction in credits. So it proposed reducing from 4 credits to 3. The requirements are of those three, two are lab sciences, one of them must be biology. Our straw poll did show some support to reducing the required credits, and support for making sure that biology and two lab sciences are included. So some of the responses were to no, not reduce it to three, keep it at four, and require chemistry and physics. So are there more suggestions? Hey, there, that's it. That's it. So if there are other suggestions on this topic, of,
Suggestion. I had a question. Why isn't there research backing this choice the way the other ones had the research backing it? Would that be because there is no research justifying such a decision as this? And that it is morally repugnant and wrong? Just a thought.
you're talking about the Aussie.
It's like, where's that collaborative research saying this is a good idea?
If you're talking about the research from the ERC, she had a very limited amount of time and she asked us kind of what were the sticking points we had heard the most. So I think it's just a matter of what she prioritized and not that there isn't any evidence base. So don't read anything into the fact that we don't have ERC context for this topic.
Is that what you're talking about, Laura, or the
Yeah,
Aussie?
I mean, I just don't see like any rationale for this decision. From Aussie,
They mentioned like compared to other states. Like.
And I think what the only rationale I said is they looked at colleges and all of them didn't require it. But then when I went back and looked at it in OSSI, they say DC science assessment results reinforce the continuing need to provide additional science resources and instructional time to students. So that was from OSSI. So I was trying to figure out how do we justify this, in the face of that, my suggestion was, I don't like the career prep course. I think we should have a lot of other courses qualified to be science, like a lot of half credit courses. I think the reason we did this is because we wanted to create space for financial literacy. And financial literacy is making it 4.5 for math. I mean, there's lots of things we could do. We could make it 8 for science and math. There is, but like Laura, I mean, with climate change, with the way the country's going, it is hard to understand how we could do this. And I don't think all students are even offered physics now. We don't have an integrated science course where kids get earth science, anatomy. One of our largest employers is hospitals. So that, our kids even getting exposed to what it would take to live, to work in a hospital, even basic anatomy or basic physiology, let alone basic, we're not mastering the biology. So all this said, that's why I was afraid we wouldn't get through it by 7:30. But I too think it was like, let's take it from here to get, so we don't have to lower the graduation. We don't have to raise the graduation requirements. And we have room for financial literacy. And this may not have been the best place to take it.
You have a hand in the bell or not too.
Okay, Yvette, briefly, please.
Yeah, so I again submitted a science proposal as well. And I think my basic concern is, yes, the reduction to the number, but I do know that, not a lot of states require 4 years of science. My biggest concern is you only require biology, but don't require chemistry. And so I feel like in what I've heard in past, presentations is, it would be chemistry or environmental science or a physics or for your second one. And the proposal I submitted shows that you can't really, environmental science does not take the place of chemistry. And chemistry is the gateway course for many professions, especially in the health field. All of them have to go, you have to take chemistry. So if you're going to go with this, so lab science, chemistry is a lab science and should be a requirement. Yeah.
I know chemistry is a lab science. Are we suggesting, is there somewhere that suggests environmental studies as a lab science?
environmental science. I've heard it in a past presentation as one of the options. And when I went back and looked at my notes, that's why I kind of put that in the proposal. That doesn't take the place. You have to have chemistry. The way that NAEP does the testing, it does life sciences, physical sciences, and earth sciences. The physical sciences are the chemistry and the physics. And the life sciences are, of course, biology. And then you may have an anatomy pathway or physiology pathway. And for most health fields, it's the anatomy, the physiology, the chemistry, and the biology. But the biology is just the foundation. And then you kind of move up from there. So, I'm just saying that I think the way that it's written that says only requiring biology and one other lab science, but not being specific about that being a chemistry, or you can say or physics. I mean, I'm either way, but chemistry is that base foundational course for most health science fields. And again, we have these CTEs that we're telling our kids to take these classes and get these college credits. And there are these professions that, again, will require these basic courses when they get to college or as supplements to whatever they're doing. And if you don't have an introduction to that in high school, again, that sets you back for your profession. So.
Right, so we've heard people voice dissent, but our poll was 2/3 in favor. I wonder if anybody wants to speak to the other side.
I just think there's power in what was named around NAEP and the way in which NAEP categorizes science and ensuring that there are courses associated with those categories, because NAEP is typically the way that we train that we are the fastest urban improving school district in the country, or even jurisdiction. And so I just think we need to be mindful of the way in which we are rating ourselves and the categories associated. And so NAEP does its physical life and the earth space, earth and space. And I do, to Kathy's point, wonder, because there were a lot of discussion originally around how do we not go from 24 to 22, right? Like going back to a long time ago. And then we landed back at 24, and how do we ensure that the financial literacy and the career preparation can stick? So something had to give in order for that stick to happen. So I just wonder how we think of that.
I'll keep it short, 'cause I know I talk a lot about this, but elementary schools often don't offer science at all. Middle schools barely offer science at all. Like, I taught at a STEM school, and so we did have kind of quite a few additional pathways to science, but the credits already allowed the flexibility for the kids to do it and for it to count. So I guess I just, again, don't see like the need to get rid of science. I get right that this was probably a math thing, and like when they came for social studies, we clapped back pretty hard, and science maybe wasn't paying as close attention, so they didn't get to be put back in the queue. But
He just didn't fight.
like, it's concerning, I guess. And I went to a college that was known for the core, so they did make us jump through 10 million hoops, and they did not care how many courses we walked in with wonderful AP scores with. They're like, nope, you're taking ours. But like, I like that ours is higher than, kind of the average, like, that we are saying you're gonna come out of this a well-rounded student with kind of these core. And like, science already gives some flexibility in like what science looks like. So I guess I just don't. I guess, yeah, I don't get it, like, maybe it is like that you require like a CTE also be a science or something, like you kind of like say science supposed to happen somewhere else, but it's still happening in one of the other buckets, but I don't know, I don't like it. I'm worried, like, if we already have trouble staffing these, some people mention, like, it might be like, well, this is all I want to staff, so we just won't do physics. We can't find the physics, certified educator, so we're just dropping that one, cause there we go, like now we're better.
No, literally,
Right,
that's
like-
why.
No, I mean, like, it happens, like,
I'm sticking to it.
I know our school has
I re-
struggled
I
to find
resent that.
chem teacher when our longtime chem teacher, decided he was gonna do in college now instead of doing high school, so like, I get it.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
Yeah, Eleni.
I was gonna say, I agree, and just representing like teachers, not really what I think about this, I will say, when this was shared, teachers were the most upset about this. Like, not necessarily social studies teachers, just in general, people were upset, so I do agree from a WTU perspective. I think what Laura said makes sense, like, why not, if it's to add more there's already so much flexibility, I wish we had this flexibility, but why not just say 3 years if including like a math or other STEM class, like something kind of like that or idea. That makes sense. Like if it's to create flexibility for pre-calc or something else, fine, or the equivalency that already happens. There's that chart that they have for CTE courses. Like some equivalency. But I do think taking it down to 3, it doesn't. Besides the fact that it's common across the nation, it doesn't have to happen. And so many kids have half days and are done, like our credits already, I will say, I've never seen so many kids have a half day. This year especially, so many kids can do them in class. Yeah, they're like, there's no, unless you're doing the AP route and the CT route, which is a very small subset of students, students I work with the most. Everyone else, I would say 90% of the students are not having issues finding, like getting. So I don't think there's a need to reduce it to 3.
As a high school principal, I used to say you get 32 at bats, you need 24 credits.
Exactly, exactly.
But if you are a student that requires double blocking math, double blocking ELA at 9th and 10th grade, like all the realities, then you aren't a child that has access to the early release. That by law says you should be a certain age before you get it, but we know that oftentimes.
Yeah, and of the 24, 3.5 are elective already.
That's correct.
All right, so I think we need to wrap. I'll say, we,
Can I offer a dissenting opinion, if everybody else thought that?
if you could do it real quickly.
I can do it really quickly, just again, from the lens of a college counselor as well as a mother. I think if you have a student who is achieving high in other areas and their life path does not involve science or medical or anything like that, colleges don't require 4 years of science if you're going to be a journalist or if you're going to be an elementary school teacher or something like that. Unfortunately, not all kids know what they want to do, but they can gain college admission and then at that point make it up. So I was one of the people who said I didn't really care because I feel like it's not required the way Algebra 2 is, for kids to even have options in their future.
All right, thank you. I will say, as co-chairs, we have held everything with open hands, because we want to be responsive to what the task force is saying and doing. So, we may reevaluate, our timeline. And want to thank you for the discussion that we've had today, which has been very valuable. I think we may need to do some more iterating, like some more back and forth of like, here's what we heard today, bring it back to you, kind of thing. So we will do that work. And just ask you for your continued engagement, which we.
It was really nice to meet together, I will say.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. It was easier.
I forgot to vote on that, so don't throw it away.
Oh, we're not doing anything with it.
Well, also, speaking of voting and surveys, so this conversation made me change my vote on this. Is this like bound? Is this what you're taking to your meeting to say,
No.
hey, 67%?
That's why we said, that's why when you all asked me, so that's why I was like, just trust the process, just go
Okay.
with me. That's why when we did the community service and somebody was like, are we gonna vote again? And I was like, no. I was like, we'll wait till we get to the end, because there are things that simmered up.
So these numbers are not gonna be like recorded since it could have changed.
I mean,
No, I mean,
They're
they're reported,
public,
they're
but-
public
but
as
they're
of
not
where we are
binding.
now. They're not binding.
Okay.
Yes, they're not a secret, but they're not binding.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys. You have a good job.
Take some food and thank you, Ava.
Jen?